Welcome to the Brain Hickey Podcast, resources for marketers and entrepreneurs to help you leave a long-lasting mark on your audience, what I call a Brain Hickey. I'm your host, Adam Bensman. Now today in episode 4, we're going to be talking about why you need to abandon everything you were taught about sales when writing copy. Selling in person is about as polar opposite as it can get as it is to selling in writing or selling online. Now, I thought I was a pretty good salesperson. I was a C.O.O. of an in-home sales organization and ran a business management consulting and sales training company. I've trained people all across the country in in-home sales, overcoming objections, asking questions, asking for the sale, all your typical sales stuff. And in fact, I got pretty good at it too. Then I started to write copy and I took everything I knew from sales and I thought I was a good writer and I didn't make any money. And here's what happened. I spent a ton of money, like a lot of money, building a side hobby business and a social following over 20,000 people online in about 6 months. I wrote a ton of content and it helped build this massive audience. I said, you know what? I'm a good writer. And then I made $400. Now I had tens of thousands of dollars invested in this hobby business of mine and I made $400, okay? That's not a very good ROI if you ask me. And here I was, a good salesperson, a sales trainer, and what I thought to be a strong writer, and I couldn't make any money. And that's when I started to learn through this massive failure and reflecting on how come I spent all this money. I have this audience, I've got this great website. Why am I not converting anybody into a sale? And here's what I learned. Number one is there's a massive difference between content and copy. Content builds an audience, it's engaging content. We like to consume it, right? That's all good and well. And there's plenty of great content writers. And in fact, many of my clients that I work with, they are great content writers. Copy writers take content and empower it to convert. So copy, convert, copy, convert. Copy is where sales happen. This is learning how to sell in writing, which is very different than selling in person. Here's the top 6 things that are extremely different. In fact, I'm going to go as far to say 100% polar opposite when you're selling online versus selling in person. And engaging in some of these online groups that I'm a part of with fellow copywriters, I see that these copywriters are fantastic at writing copy, but ironically, not very good salespeople. They're not very good with the customer interaction and getting new clients. It's a interesting dichotomy considering they can sell so well in writing. And likewise, you see great salespeople that suck selling in writing, right? So different mediums. So one thing we have to consider is the medium in which we are selling or communicating. And I'm going to go into those here in just a second. Now, some of the written mediums are going to be email, web, landing page, squeeze pages, anything where you're actually reading online. And the way you write sales copy on Facebook is different than an email because the level of awareness and the level of trust and the fact that Facebook is a community built around content and engagement and stories, where email, you can be very bold. I've had some pretty great sales writing really aggressively salesy emails because it works, right? We have people that opted in and know us. So number one, we got to understand our medium. Number 2 is our communication medium. If I'm talking to you on the phone, I'm likely going to have a very different interaction with you than I would when I'm in person because I can use my own body language. I can use mirroring techniques. I can use other little strategies to help engagement and draw back in attention. But when we're dealing with writing in selling via a written medium or through copy, the tricks of the trade and all the strategies that we learned about traditional sales must be abandoned. And here are the top 6 things that are 100% polar opposite when you are selling in a written medium versus selling in person. So for the marketers and entrepreneurs out there, if you are good salespeople, this is fantastic. And I'm glad that you are because it is helping your business dramatically. Now, what I want you to do is challenge yourself to adopt these 6 tips to now take your sales ability that you have in person and modify and change it and harness what you need to harness and what you need to abandon when you're starting to engage people in a written form. All right, number 1, the warm-up. All right, now we all know the warm-up. I cut my teeth in door-to-door sales. You knock on the door, hey, how you doing today? My name's Adam, and you start some small talk. Or, hey, that's a beautiful boat in the driveway, right? Where the warm-up is almost this icebreaker. When we're writing copy, Nothing bores anyone more than the fluff, especially in those cold sales emails that you get. You get this cold sales mail. Hey, I hope your week is doing well. No one writes like that. No one cares. You got to cut to the chase. And I'm going to dive into these here in more detail once we go through them so I can kind of paint this landscape for you. Number 2, discovery and asking questions. Now, this is a tough one. Depending on where that person is in your sales funnel will dictate whether or not you've had some sort of discovery or maybe a quiz that landed them in the funnel. But typically when you start engaging them with written copy, you don't have that ability to say, well, is that really important to you? Or what are the top 5 things you're looking for in a contractor, or whatever it is. We can't ask those questions to then get fed what we know we're going to deliver them. And when I train people in in-home sales or in in-person sales, we use those objections to identify what that prospect needs to hear and wants to hear, and we can present or alter our proposal to suit their needs. We don't have that capability when we're dealing with with selling in the written medium, in copy. Number 3, reeling attention back in. We cannot do it. It's really difficult. When we lose someone, they're gone, period. Right? You're reading something, you're not engaged, you click off, you click back, or you check Facebook notifications. When I'm selling in person, if I see that you're drifting off, I might have an influx or change a subject or reel you back in somehow using a variety of different tips and tricks. But when we are dealing with a written copy or even in video, these mediums do not allow us to reel attention back in the same way that we can in person. There's little tricks of the trade that will allow us to reel attention back in, but it's very, very different than doing it in person. All right, number 4, reading body language. We've all seen it, right? The eyes fluttering to the top of the head, the cold shoulder turning towards you, the arms crossed, the stepping back. These are the cues, breaking of eye contact even, right? That tell us something. They're not interested, or maybe you're telling them something and their eyebrows perk up. You see this slight smile or smirk on their face. You're like, we're getting somewhere. That's a hot button. I'm going to dive into that. We don't have that. We can't read that body language to then have this vibrant and mobile sales presentation where you're constantly observing these cues and altering your pitch. We can't do it. We got to have the same pitch for everybody. Number 5, overcoming objections. Now, it's very easy to be interrupted in your sales presentation with, well, let me talk to my wife, or whatever the top objections you hear. And we train on those, right? Here are the top objections I hear in my sales pitch, and this is how we overcome them. Can overcome, and not only can you should overcome objections in your copywriting, your sales copywriting. And remember, copy converts, content doesn't. You can and should overcome objections, but you need to cue in those objections in your copy pitch, understanding when are they going to arise and what's going to be said and how can I overcome them. You essentially need to get into the mind of your audience and say, when are they going to ask a question? What question will that be? And how do I overcome it to keep them engaged? Because the last thing we want them to do is start having these objections in their head and there's no one there to answer them. So it's very different than presenting in person in an in-home or in-person sale where we can be interrupted at any point and ask and stop and say, hey, it looks like you might have some questions for me. We have to know when those questions are going to come up and overcome them on our own. All right, number 6 is the biggest one yet. Asking for the sale. Now, everyone says that, right? Everyone trains you when you're in sales. Ask for the sale, right? It's the number one thing that rookies don't do. They don't say, hey, are we going to move forward? You ready to do this? When should we go into the paperwork or whatever it is? Everyone's got their little hook, line, and sinker that they use to master their craft of whatever it is they're selling, from products to cars to services. You cannot ask for the sale in a written medium. And you're probably going to be saying, Adam, you're crazy. What do you mean you can't ask for a sale? Now, hear me out. The reason I say you can't ask for a sale when you're writing copy is because you have to tell the reader what to do, right? And that's a very subtle but very powerful difference. Asking for the sale is, so have I done enough to earn your business, right? So we can get our yeses. Now, we're not going to end an email with something like that, right? Well, has my relationship and service, met your standards to the point that you're ready to move forward working together? No, we need to tell them what to do. Click this button to sign up for your free consultation. It is a very strong call to action. It's not a question, it is a statement. Click this button to get started. Click add to cart. It's a commanding authority that needs to be crafted in such a way that's not abrasive, but literally walks the reader into what to do. And what's interesting is when people interact with web copy or videos, they literally are being told what to do. Click like, right? It's not saying click like if you like my page. You're telling the audience, click like, right? So it's a very different way of asking for that sale. And the problem is people that are really good at sales often have this diluted call to action because they're used to asking, again, inquisitively for the sale in person. And they try to do that in their cold sales emails. And for you, those of you that are in sales, I do have a little template for you that you can find on my blog. And it's called Secret to Getting More Responses from Cold Sales Emails. So just go to brainhickey.com, click blog, look for Secret to Getting More Responses from Cold Sales Emails. You can always go directly to brainhickey.com/cold-sales-email-blueprint. brainhickey.com/cold-sales-email-blueprint. And this will go over overcoming a lot of those bad habits that are created by really good salespeople. But again, having to translate those skills into being a strong sales writer. The takeaway of today's podcast is this: abandon everything you were taught about sales when writing copy. The difference between being a content writer and a copywriter is copy converts, okay? You may very well be or have a team of very strong content writers, but what differentiates money-making writing is copy. The ability to walk a reader through a process, get in their mind and in their brain and understand what's going on as they read and evolve and engage in your story, overcome those objections in writing, keep attention captured through the subtlety of formatting and language usage, and command the sale. Tell the reader what to do. So the obvious question that you probably have is, great, Adam, this is all a wonderful concept, but how do I do it? So I want to go step by step here. Number one, skip the warm-up or the icebreaker. And how do you do that? What you want to do is format your copy, whether it's an ad layout or an email, to get someone to read the first line. All right. As Joseph Sugarman, who's one of my absolute most inspiring copywriters to read and to follow, says in his book, all the elements in an advertisement are primarily designed to do one thing and one thing only: get you to read the first sentence of the copy. And that's a quote from page 29 of the Adweek Copywriter Handbook written by Joseph Sugarman. So again, all you want someone to do is read that first line. And if your opening sentence is, hey, hope you're braving the cold weather, I mean, no one says that in a real dialogue with anybody. This is an icebreaker that can be saved for in-home or in-person sales, but is not going to be applicable in written copy. So again, ditch the icebreaker and dive right into the point. Now, discovery and asking questions. We don't have this ability here, so we need to start commanding our authority in our written copy. Number three, reeling attention back in. This is what Joseph Sugarman calls creating a slippery slide, and this quote is from page 49. Your readers should be so compelled to read your copy that they cannot stop reading until they read all of it as if sliding down a slippery slide. The way to do this is to use a combination of formatting and improper grammar, believe it or not. Using a short sentence to start your copy intrigues someone, okay? If I started with a run-on sentence, which I've edited plenty of my clients' copy, where the opening sentence is like 4 commas and it takes up half a paragraph, start with something short. And when we have this short sentence, our mind, this natural curiosity, doesn't feel whole. Like we want the answer. So we have this intrigue of like, well, what else is he going to say? How does he qualify that? So using shorter sentences are easier to read, they're faster to read, and we really want to keep our reading level to a very, very simple level. We should be able to hand this to a 6th or 7th grader in middle school, and they should be able to read everything very easily. Now, I know if your target market is highly educated and you've got some industry lingo to use, that's fine. You need to use it, and I understand that's not going to fly with the 6th or 7th grade reading level rule, but the point is to keep things short, simple, and flowing very well and very easily. We want the lowest friction in our reading engagement. All right, now asking for the sale is the last piece. We can't do it like we would if we were in an in-person sale, right? You can't really use that body language to cue by sliding a contract over in the pen and just doing that subtlety like, all right, so to move forward, we just got to sign here and here, where you kind of just almost backing the person into making a commitment without them knowing it. We can't do that. What we need to do is direct them exactly what to do. If you're selling a product or service, click add to cart. If you're selling a product, click add to cart. If you're selling a service, let's say you need a consultation or an intake, schedule a consultation with me. You need to have what I call that one action goal. So every piece of copy that you produce, and this goes for content as well, to transform content into copy that converts, is to have a one action goal. So every piece of content that you put out there needs to do one thing. What do I want my reader to do? Do they want to click a button? Are they going to add to cart? Are they going to sign up? Are they going to register? Are they going to schedule a meeting with me? Whatever that one action goal is, needs to be the focus for the conversion. So determine what your one action goal is. Collect an email, schedule, get them on the phone. Whatever that is, you need to tell them how to do that. Click here to schedule a call with me. Click add to cart to get started, whatever it is. Those are the top 6 differences between selling in person and selling in written copy. Ditch the warm-up. Discovery and asking questions is not something you can do when you're writing. Reeling attention back in is going to take a craft of writing engaging copy that keeps people's attention captured the whole time. Number 4, you cannot count on reading body language. Number 5, you're going to need to know how to overcome those objections, exactly when that reader is going to start having them in your mind. And number 6 is not going to be asked for the sale, but to command the sale. And remember, there's a difference between being a good writer and a copywriter. Content builds an audience, copy converts. So selling and writing is nearly the opposite of selling in person. For some of these free tips, you can always check out the cold sales email blueprint on the Brain Hickey website. You'll find it in the blog section. Go ahead and download that. You'll learn some more tips and tricks on selling cold in email. Thanks again for listening. Access all your supplementary podcast goodies at brainhickey.com and click subscribe for new episode alerts every Tuesday. This is Adam Bensman signing off the Brain Hickey podcast.